Hi, this video is to explain the article review, and of course if you have any questions you can feel free to email me anytime. So right now I am actually going to go over the document that says Guidelines for Article Critique, and then we will look at the rubric together. First of all, your article is not an article that you would find in a regular educational magazine. You need to look for a research-based journal. And if you're not familiar with research, the research that people do in education and in other fields, that research is usually published in journals before they are published in books. And this is how doctoral students, master's degree students, and researchers find the latest research is from these big journals. In the document, it has a list of journals that you can look at, like the American Journal of Education, Educational Leadership, Educational Research. There are a lot of journals out there. My suggestion to you that would probably, well, there's two. There are two easy ways to access these journals. One, you can go through the Louisiana College website, and if you go through the library, then you will be able to access these journals without cost. Now, the other way that you could do this, and this is what I used whenever I was in my doctoral program, and I was looking for a specific article, journal article, you can actually go to Google and type in Google Scholar, and then that will bring you to a new Google page, and it'll have a search engine box there, and you can type in what you're interested in, and it will bring up scholarly articles for those topics. Some of them you will not be able to access because it will bring you to a page where you're supposed to pay to access the journal. However, many of them you will be able to access through Google Scholar, so that's one way of accessing those journals. It needs to be a recent publication, so in the past 5 years, and these journals are typically 10 to 15 pages. Sometimes they are 25 pages, sometimes they're 40. So you may have to look at several journals to decide which article you want to read, because you may have to read it a couple of times to really grasp what the research is about. Typically, these articles are broken up into pieces, like an introduction, the purpose of the study, an overview of the literature behind the study, and usually it talks about the method of study after that, you know, what the sample size is and the types of quantitative or qualitative analyses they conducted, and then it will give you the results. At some point it will also talk about limitations of the study. For instance, if the study was only done on special education students, then they are not positive of how that study could affect regular education students. That's an example of a limitation. And so lastly, it talks about implications for the future and for future research. So what you're going to do with your article critique is those 5 things that I just kind of gave an overview of. They are in these guidelines for your article critique down here, and you need to use those as headings for your paper. So the first part, you're going to talk about the purpose of the study. Then the second part of your critique, you're going to talk about how it was conducted. I want it to be less of a summary and more of answering these specific questions, and then you're critiquing the study. So you can provide your opinion about the relevance or the importance of that study on education. You can talk about the strengths of the study, and then maybe the limitations. And I think once you start reading them with a critical viewpoint, you will be able to understand what I mean. For instance, if the study was done on 10 students and it was a qualitative study, one of your critiques might be that all 10 students were from the same area in a certain state in the United States, and so they have similar experiences, whereas if the study were larger, then we would find more discrepancy in the results. All right, so a big part of doing an article critique, and this is supposed to help you for your research class that you will be taking, is ensuring that you use APA format whenever you write. And I would definitely suggest that I would suggest that you either buy the APA manual or you use the online resource Purdue OWL. That's the best one that I've seen on how to use APA. It also shows you how to use MLA and Chicago style, so make sure you're on the right page. You're on APA for the OWL Purdue website. It is very specific on the margins, what you should have on the first page and subsequent pages, because the first page of your critique is going to be different than the subsequent pages. For instance, on the first page you will have running head at the top and then part of your title in all caps. So just make sure that every piece of it looks exactly like the APA examples that they have online or in the APA book. You will have one reference, and that will be at the end. So each assignment is going to have a title page with that running head. You're going to have a reference page in the back, and it will say references, : and then you'll have one reference. Within the article, I know that it comes from one article, but you do need to cite the author in parentheses, and you'll do it just like APA style. So you'll have their last name, comma, and then the year, and make sure you put your period where it should be. Now I know that it's only one article, so I would suggest that you reference that author just at the end of each paragraph, maybe. There's no specific amount of times that you need to put their name in parentheses because it's just one author. If you were doing a research paper, it would be a little bit different. So there is also a rubric that you need to look at, and this is how I will be grading your article critique. The first part of the rubric talks about the APA format, so that's very important. And then you'll see that each of the questions that you're supposed to address is a part of the rubric. And then at the bottom, it gives specific things, like if you have used your citations in APA 6th edition, if you have correct grammar and punctuation, and I will take off points if you have consistent grammar or punctuation errors. If it's written with clarity and organization, and then if it's coherent. So if you need to find somebody to read over your article review, I encourage you to do that. I know that this will not be an issue, but I have to say it. Make sure that you do not plagiarize, and make sure that you are not using someone else's work, because I have a program that I will run it through just to make sure that you are not using someone else's work. You may quote the author if you would like. If you have a powerful quote that you feel like supports what you're trying to say in your critique, then I suggest that you add that, and you will not be taken off for plagiarism for that. Just make sure that you cite it correctly. Okay, so you have 4 article critiques to do, and so you will need to find 4 different articles within journals. It can be from the same journal, different articles. And if you have any issues with that, please email me, and I will try to help you out. Thanks.